this podcast, we will be looking at storytellers, stories, and the reasons that oral storytelling is important in our world today. You would think with all the technology we have available that stories do not have a place anymore, but they are needed more than ever. For in storytelling is where we find truth, we find reality, and we find the heart of what it is to be human. Welcome to the heart of storytelling. My name is Alyssa, and let's go on an adventure.
Welcome to this week's episode. This week I speak with my classmate and dorm buddy from Emerson College, Talia Levy. We had a room opposite each other and shared meals and brainstormed and practiced with each other and cried and shared lots of amazing things. And in this interview, Talia shares her experience of Emerson, but also what she's been doing since she's been back when we finished in May 2024. I loved catching up with Talia, and I hope you enjoy hearing about the possibilities for people if they want to go and do the course or even embrace whatever it is that's calling them. Here's Talia. Welcome to this week's episode. This week we're speaking with Talia Levy, who is in Mullumbimby in New South Wales. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I would love to hear about your storytelling journey, what your storytelling journey's been so far.
Well, my storytelling journey began with you in the UK, called beyond my conscious comprehension to go to the UK and participate with Roy and Carmit in the School of Storytelling Beyond Words. And it's interesting, like all of us, I think, I love stories and I always have loved stories, but I wasn't called there because of a love of stories. I was called there for different reasons. I really wanted to liberate my voice and my expression and my creativity. I was feeling very frozen in that space, I think. And I just, when you just I wanted something, and that course called to me because of a friend who had wanted to do it. And I went there and I just fell deeper and deeper in love and confronted many aspects of myself and the blocks within me, and really just loved it, loved the community, loved the storytelling. When I finally found the confidence to get up and tell stories in front of people, I remember before I went, it was like this curiosity of, wow, I wonder maybe at the end of this program, it's possible that I would enjoy standing up in front of a room of people and telling them a story. Like that's a possibility. Imagine if that happened. And it did. It did happen. And so I came back to Australia in May, and I shared the story that I told as the final project there, which was a whole deep journey in of itself that maybe we can talk about. And then I started running just a little course. I wanted to create a bit of community here at home. Storytelling's not really a thing, most people don't really know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about storytelling. And so the few who did or who were curious, I brought some people together and basically just shared what we learned over there, just because I wanted to keep up the practice and the skill. And I wanted to stay fresh and alive. And so I wanted some people to share it with and to share what I learned. And yeah, I mean, I ran the first 8-week course, started in October, and we finished up last week with a final community storytelling evening. And yeah, and then I also did a performance where I shared once again with the larger community my big story from the course. And here that takes us to now.
Oh, so cool. I'm so excited for you. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to um, start something new in a community. What were the things that you went through to be able to get that started?
Um, to be honest, with that course, there wasn't much that happened for, like, there wasn't much that was in the way of it. I was like, look, I'm going to take it right back to the bare bones. I'm not, I'm not putting myself forward as an expert. I'm really just doing this because I want to create a bit of community because I learned some really amazing stuff and I worked with that stuff a lot in an intensive environment. And I think I got a good enough hold on it that I can share it. And I felt actually like really in my rightness. Like it really just flowed. And I was like, I want to do this. I can. It's simple. It's really simple. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not creating something new. I'm really just sharing what I learned. I went really far away to the other side of the world to learn this. And if I want to keep it up, I'm going to have to share what I learned.
Mm,
It actually was really simple. And I was like, even if there's a few people in the group, I don't care how many people, it doesn't matter. It's about it's about keeping this space alive within myself and maybe planting some seeds here in this community that could grow into more to that storytelling could become more of a thing. Like people, now when I talk about storytelling, most people just think I'm talking about like marketing. Like that's what if you type into Instagram storytelling, that's what you get, for example. So yeah, just to kind of breathe some life back into this ancient thing that we all love and there are the people who know it and love it and who know
mhm,
exactly what I'm talking about, but they're few and far between.
mm. I guess that's one of the challenges. I mean, I have the same, that 3 month period that we had where we could practice story, immerse in it, be around other people who shared that. That was pretty precious. And I know that I had a desire to recreate that feeling of being a part of that community when I got home as well. Yeah.
Mm.
So did
Yeah.
you let's talk about your show. How did it
Mhm.
go?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, I mean, it was a big push to get there. There'd been like a lot of personal circumstances in my family and myself getting sick that was really like a to for me to be able to get there and do that was a mammoth effort, really. And I did, and I brought together, I think what was really special about it was I asked a couple of friends, one who had heard me tell the story 6 months earlier and who really understood it from a very deep level in her own experience and being. So I asked her to help with hosting it. And then another friend who is a beautiful man who's a storytelling poet, he's a bard in his own way. Um, and I'd heard him do a lot of poetry in the past. He'd worked a lot with the poems of um, Rumi and Hafiz, and they're all so beautifully honoring of like the divine that has a very feminine tone. And so I asked him to bring something, and he'd gone on a whole different tangent that actually really lined up with what my story was about. I've called it Stories of My Line. And um, yeah, I mean, it's all about uncovering the untold stories of my ancestral line, of the women in particular. And he'd parallel to that been on his own journey with his ancestral line, um, and moved away from Hafiz and Rumi and into the recognition that he was born Catholic and he grew up in a Catholic community. And so looking for the untold story in his line. Um, so yeah, it was an incredible collaboration in the end, and we did it at this beautiful place. And my friend has this gorgeous property that she really caretakes with deep reverence for the land, and it felt very supported. And yeah, I'm feeling the reverberations of it move through the community and the people who were there, and the different reflections that are coming back. It's interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How was it collaborating with other people?
Well, it was wonderful. I mean, they're both really good friends and they're both creatives in their own right. Um, and they were both really excited about working with each other. It was like I'd given them this opportunity to work together. And so I had the story, you know, in a sense, I wasn't really collaborating. I was just like, I've got this story, and can you create the space for me to tell it?
Mm,
And so they were more collaborating, really. Like they were working out and they ended up creating a frame around it. And, you know, it was a story within a story within a story. And they really created this space for me to step into to be able to tell my story without having to hold the before and after as much,
mm,
which was a real honor. And
yeah.
they set the space. You know, we're not primed for listening, sitting and listening for a long time. And so they really, you know, helped people drop into the space. So by the time I was there telling the story, people were ready to sit and listen.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. So I spoke a little bit earlier about your process for putting together the show. Do you want to talk a bit about how that all worked for you? I mean, I've got to witness it, but I feel very lucky to be at the
Oh,
front
yeah,
row
of
of that.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an incredible journey. You know, we were encouraged from the very beginning to listen to the whispers of our soul, listen to what was calling us to be served through us. And yeah, I've always had a deep love of women's work for a long time. I've done a lot of women's work, and my family is Jewish. And um these two aspects of me, the Judaism and the womanhood, were just, you know, they started as little quiet whispers, but they became loud and they wouldn't go away. And it was very challenging because I just thought, you know, it's not a great time for Jews in the world. And it's really, there's a lot tied up in that identity. Um, and I wasn't really interested in indulging in it. I was sort of like, just keep that bit to the side. But you know, it was speaking to me and asking something of me. And so eventually I just surrendered and I kept listening. And I mean, what was the process? It was a process of, you know, starting with one story from the Bible and imagining, well, that woman, the Tamar, Judah's, the mother of Judah's twins, who's the mother of, you know, the ancestress of King David and Jesus Christ. Like she's in Judaism, there are four mothers, and everyone would kind of refer to the four mothers, but she's the fifth, and she wasn't part of the tribe, and she joined in, and she used her feminine knowing and power and rightness to make sure that she got what she needed and what she was owed by that family. And in doing so, you know, she's the fifth mother. And so it started with her story and imagining like she was surely a powerful woman to do what she did, which was basically to dress up as a prostitute and have, I mean, it's a bit rough to explain it like this, but there was a series of events that led to this point for her, and she did that, and she had the children of Judah. Um, so it's just this, wow, there's deep feminine power in this line, and it's not the power that I was raised on. It wasn't the stories that I was raised on. I grew up thinking of Judaism as a very patriarchal religion. It was definitely, in my life, it was more of a culture and a tradition than a religion, but
Mm,
the stories were of men. Um, and so, yeah, it kind of was this unfolding of like, okay, it's a religion, it's a tradition, and a lot of it got written down. A lot of it got frozen in time when it was written down, and the way it got passed to me in my very secular, um, cultural community didn't give a lot of reverence to the feminine. And as a religion, it actually does. Like more religious people, they understand the sacredness of woman, and it's actually very much woven into the religion, but I wasn't religious. So I looked at my own questions, and it was a question that I'd had for a very long time around Sarah. So Abraham, he was the first Jew, he was the first monotheist. And when I first learned about the matriarchy, and that before monotheism there was something else, and before patriarchal culture there was matriarchal culture, when I first learned that, I kind of like did the numbers and looked into the timelines, and I realized that in a sense it really lined up with Abraham, who's the first Jewish ancestor. The stories start with him really. And well, after anyway, they start with him in a way. And so if he was the first monotheist, then his wife, his sister wife, Sarah, well, who was she? Her mother didn't believe in one God. So what got passed down the line of the women that didn't get written into the Torah, into the Bible? And that question led me on a quest. And that's sort of the introduction to the story. And I guess it's the genuine line of inquiry that I followed and that I created. Well, I've never been able to find the answer to that question. Nobody's ever told me the answer to that question. And through storytelling, I found the ability to find it in myself, my own research and interest.
I really loved hearing what you just said, but also because I got to see from the outside your process and your rehearsals and stuff. So it's really good to see both of those things. But obviously, you've been doing a lot of women's work for a long time. Can you tell me a bit more about what you do with women's work?
Well, I was involved with the School of Shamanic Womancraft for 4 years, and I went through the apprentice program because, as I say in that story, I didn't know anything about women. I didn't know what it meant to be a woman. I didn't understand why I was different from a man or anything about cycles. And through doing that work and being in that community and living that healed sisterhood, I just couldn't get enough. I felt like I kept going and I kept going because I felt like I needed to rewire my system. Like I really wanted to get a very strong imprint. I went through the apprenticeship program to teach the Four Seasons journey, but I didn't end up doing that. I ran some holiday programs for girls. We did the Maiden School of Magic, where we kind of, set the scene for the girls that were prepubescent. I've been part of a women's circle for a long time, but I think more than anything, the women's work it's a way of being. I don't work, women don't pay me to come and work with me for women's work, but it's it's a way of being, and it's a way of showing up in the world, and that's probably what I mean by in the present. By doing women's work, it's actually not work. It's recognizing that our culture, our dominant culture, doesn't actually support us to be women, doesn't support us to live a healed sisterhood. And so I work against that dominant culture to exist in a way that feels more true, I suppose, like a lot of us are doing.
So tell me more about that, the dominant culture and women's work.
Well, our culture, the fishbowl that we're all swimming around in, sees progress and progress, productivity as the highest forms of success and they're most highly valued. You know, we value hard work, a lot of it. Go, go, go. We live in a go, go, go life. Like even this time of year, you know, we finally reached the end of the year and everyone's still climbing the mountain to Christmas. Like it's just nonstop. We just go, go, go. And the women's work and the feminine is really a recognition of the cycles. And that's, I mean, it's Jane Hardwick Collins and her work that's informed a lot of this. It's the cycle, the women's body cycled menstruation, ovulation, around and around and around. The earth cycles, the seasons, the moon. It's a recognition that the growth and that high level of achievement, that go, go, go is only a half of the cycle. Not even, you know, we start in the little death portal. We're born supple, vulnerable, tender. We grow a bit bigger. We become little blossoms and then flowers and then the flower fruits. The fruit drop and the seeds fall and we come back down. And that whole second half of the cycle of reflection, integration, rest, harvest, none of that is really acknowledged in our world. Or, I mean, it's not really valued. And in a way, things are changing, of course, like you know, it's not a blanket statement, but it's a general reflection of the energy of the world we live in, which is very fast paced and doesn't really allow for that slowness and integration that is the menstruation time and the way of woman, which is much more cyclical and less consistent. And often that's seen as bad. You know, we want consistency and reliability and these things where people can show up day in, day out, the same, reaching those targets, meeting those goals. We're not really interested in the wisdom of reflection and integration.
And so when you're working with women, you've now got storytelling as part of your tool bank. What other tools do you use?
Well, I'm not really working with women, in particular. I'm working now with storytelling and with children more. So I'm working as a preschool teacher next year and storytelling both within the community generally with people who are interested in learning to tell stories. I'm going to keep running. I've called it For the Love of Stories. I'm going to keep running that group. And I'm also moving towards working with the older people. So I feel really excited about using what I've learned in the world of storytelling so far. There's a lot more to learn. But I feel really excited about working with people who are older, who've got a life of wisdom and experiences and finding the ways to support them to tell their stories, to really draw out the magic of their wisdom and their experience in life, to share their stories as the gifts that they are for their families and for community. And it's very fresh and it's very new, and I'm very excited about it. And so it's sort of like a watch this space and see what happens and what's possible, because I've got big dreams. I see these old people standing up on a stage sharing the pearls of wisdom with our community, and the community having elders who've got this willingness and ability and space to share their stories. But baby steps. So let's see what happens.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. That sounds amazing. I really like that at the heart of all of your work is community. You know, whether it's doesn't matter what age group or demographic, it's community. which is
Mm.
lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I think the biggest thing I really got from my story and my performance that we were talking about earlier was connection to my own heritage, my own lineage. And that's something that I've really, deepening our personal threads of connection. It feels like a really important piece in that community part as well. Like, we're so here, especially where I live, there's a lot of respect and desire to respect and honor the Indigenous people of this land. And, there's a lot of spirituality here. People are doing kirtan and bhajan, I don't know, all the different spiritualities that are more accessible. But I really am curious what would happen for people if they turned to their own ancestry and their own um, lineage of spirituality to find that connection and belonging. Um, yeah, just like the image I get is of people connected to these roots that spread across the world, and really like those roots are strong. They're not all these cut, frayed bottoms that no one knows where they lead, but like a strong root that reaches
Mm.
down beneath the earth back to Europe where they came from. That culture was embraced and drawn upon for the wisdom that it offers, or the um, worldview that it offers. So
Mm.
yeah, I that's another part of the work. Next year, I think in the middle of the year, I'll start offering um workshops around that, of really connecting to your own ancestral stories as a way to find belonging and connection and spirituality.
That's so timely because my next show is about exactly that. Um,
Oh,
yeah, it's about belonging and the following the trail of ancestry back to Scotland, and yeah,
oh.
I'm really excited. We'll talk about that a bit later. So when you're telling stories, what stories are you telling?
It depends. Yeah, I guess I'm telling stories from all over. I'm always kind of, if I'm looking for stories, I'm looking first in the Jewish tradition. But yeah, it's an interesting place to look, and there aren't, yeah, I'm not always finding what I'm looking for in the resources that I have. I feel like they're there, but they're there maybe in the more like Middle Eastern stories rather than Eastern European stories. So a lot of them are in Hebrew or Arabic, and I haven't, yeah, I've still got further to look down that rabbit hole. So I'm looking everywhere. I'm looking, I love like the Maui stories, some of the African stories where, yeah, I'm telling from different places, I suppose, different people, and still expanding that a lot and listening to a lot of people tell stories and just paying attention, like which ones are calling to me.
Mm. When you say stories are calling to you, what do you mean?
Um, which ones keep pop like after I've heard them or read them, they're still ringing in my ear. They're still like my head's telling them to me again and again and again, and haven't forgotten them, the ones that are reverberating in my being, I suppose.
That's a lovely answer. Well, this podcast is called The Heart of Storytelling. What do you think is at the heart of storytelling?
Connection. Um, yeah, connection, it's something we've talked about before and we talk about a lot, like storytelling. It's not, it's not painting. You don't sit in a space by yourself and tell stories. I mean, we end up having to do that because we don't have the communities around us all the time, but it's a completely different story when it's told in a vacuum to when it's told to even two other people, three other people. One other person is strange, but two, three more people, and it's the story is brought to life in the people and in the connection between the telling and the listening. And I think it's just such a like wonderful and non-confrontational way to connect and to share and to ask questions that that people, like, we're wired for it. So yeah, connection, I'd say.
It's a very common answer, actually. It's a great,
Yeah, I
and
can
it is
imagine.
connection is one of the things that comes up a lot when we talk about, this heart-to-heart connection that we have with others. And I guess in many ways, storytelling is having somewhat of a revival over the last 30 years or so. I know in England and Scotland particularly. Why do you think that we are returning to the oral tradition now in our super fast-paced world
Mm.
and time?
Yeah, I feel and I see and I hear a craving for it. Like, people are exhausted and like, malnourished in a way, in a world of like obesity. Our souls are starving, and storytelling is I think it's deeply like rejuvenating, to just sit. There's nothing, as a listener, you're not being asked to do anything, not being asked to say or think or move. You just sit and just quieten down enough so that your soul can be fed. And I think our souls are starving. And so storytelling is just such a non-demanding feast
Mm,
for that part of us that's hungry.
love it.
Mhm.
So I imagine over the last couple of months, you've had some really memorable moments and interactions with people. Have you got any favorite moments in the last few months of what's happened?
Um, one favorite moment would definitely be the community storytelling evening where the people we'd been doing our group, where they each got up and told a story. And it's such a beautiful thing. Like, we're doing all these practices and exercises and having a lot of fun and laughter. And, that's sort of the first time I've done it. I'm like, gosh, how are they going to, they've only had 8 weeks. I what 2 hours each week. I've had 3 months and I was still not feeling very confident when I had to get up and tell stories. And so just like, how's it going to be for them? And then each of them, one after the other, up there telling a story and just owning it, and the whole room engaged and inspired, and me just going like, wow, they did it. They really did it. And they look and they sound and feel amazing up there. And yeah, that was a huge highlight for sure.
Oh, amazing. Did they
Yeah.
work with personal stories or traditional tales?
There was a bit of a mix. One worked with like a traditional story. One took a story from a book, her favorite book, and brought it to life. One had like this little historical fact that or a historical figure that she thought was really interesting. And so she created the story of this woman. And it was incredible. The girl who did it was young. She was 13, I think, or 14. And she created this whole story around this little piece of history that she knew. And it was incredible. Yeah, different. A couple of folk tales. It was a bit of tweaking to find the right story for each person.
Yeah, well, that sounds awesome. I really like that.
Mm.
That everyone went their own way. It wasn't fixed in a place to do personal or a folktale. Do you have any advice for anyone who wants to do the sort of work that you're doing or is thinking about going to Emerson perhaps?
So,
Go.
yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, just go. Like, I had no idea where I was going. There wasn't even very much to find out about it. Like, it was hard to get much information. But sometimes you just trust, hey, and yeah, if you're feeling the call, 100% go. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think the best advice I would give is like one foot in front of the other, following the calling of that the voices inside that aren't letting go. You can there's to be able to discern when there's a real inner movement toward and to follow that movement and not let fear get in the way.
You've been awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find you if they want to find out more about you and the work you do?
I have a website and Instagram. So weaving._story is the Instagram, and www.weavingstory.org is the website.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Talia. It's been awesome to have a chat with you today.
Thanks, Alyssa.
If you've enjoyed the podcast and would like to support me to continue the work that I'm doing, please head to buymeacoffee.com/Alyssa Curtain and make a donation or sign up for a subscription. This is a passion project, and as such, it is voluntary. So your donations make it easier for me to continue this work. Thank you for your support. Well, that's our episode for today. I hope you've enjoyed learning about storytelling and folktale, fairytale, myth, legend, or personal tales, wonder tales, all sorts of stories, and the art of storytelling and why we really need to continue using it today. You can find more information about me at alyssacurtain.com or at Alyssa Curtain Stories on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and TikTok. I hope that you can find your heart in storytelling.